My name is Ruby. I'm 17 years old, and I was the daughter left behind while my mom and sister flew to Hawaii. They told me we were too broke for a second ticket, but they didn't know I'd already found the receipts proving it was all a lie. The air in the Grayson household always smelled like Chloe's expensive vanilla perfume and the faint citrusy scent of the floor cleaner I used every Saturday. I was 17, but most days I felt like the unpaid housekeeper and the family's resident adult. I had just finished a double shift at Pete's Diner. My feet ached in that dull, throbbing way that made every step toward the kitchen feel like a marathon. All I wanted was a glass of ice water and a quiet corner to finish my AP bio homework. Instead, I found my mom, Diane, and my younger sister, Chloe, huddled over a laptop at the mahogany dining table. Chloe's eyes were sparkling, a look that usually meant she had successfully nagged Mom into buying her something with 3 zeros in the price tag. "Ruby, you're home," Mom beamed, though her smile didn't quite reach her eyes. It was that tight, performative smile she used when she was about to deliver news she knew I wouldn't like. "Sit down, honey. We have something to tell you." I pulled out a chair, the wood scraping harshly against the tile. "What's up? Did Chloe finally get that ring light she's been crying about?" Chloe rolled her eyes, flipping her blonde hair over her shoulder. "Ugh, no, this is way bigger. Mom, tell her." Mom cleared out an invisible wrinkle in the tablecloth. "So, you know how hard things have been lately. With the transmission going out on the SUV and the property taxes, things are tight, really tight." I nodded slowly. I knew. That was why I'd been giving Mom half my paychecks from the diner for household expenses. "But," Mom continued, her voice gaining a forced cheerfulness, "we all need a break, especially Chloe. Her grades have been, well, you know, and after that messy breakup with Tyler, she's been so depressed, so I managed to scrape together enough for an all-inclusive trip to Maui, 10 days at the Grand Wailea." My heart leaped. Hawaii? I'd never been further west than the state line. I could already feel the sun on my face, a world away from the grease trap smell of the diner. "Wait, really? How did we—" "Ruby," Mom interrupted, her voice dropping into that soft, patronizing tone. She reached across the table and squeezed my hand. Her palms were cool. "That's the thing. I checked the bank accounts, the flights, everything. I crunched the numbers 100 times. We can't afford 3 tickets." The excitement in my chest didn't just fade, it curdled. "I'm taking Chloe," Mom said quickly, as if saying it faster made it hurt less. "She needs the emotional reset. And Ruby, you're so strong. You're the most independent girl I know. You have your job, your schoolwork. I knew you'd understand that we have to prioritize the person who's struggling the most right now." Chloe didn't even look at me. She was already back on the laptop, scrolling for a website for beach-ready bikinis. "Mom, can I get the white one with the pearls? It'll look so good in the sunset photos." I looked at my mom. I looked at the calluses on my palms from carrying heavy trays. "So, I'm just staying here? To work?" "And to house sit," Mom added brightly. "The Millers next door said they'd pay you $50 a day to watch their Labradors. It's a great opportunity for you to save up even more for college." I pulled my hand back from hers. The independent label felt like a cage. It was the excuse they always used to leave me behind, because they knew I wouldn't break, while Chloe was treated like a glass doll that might shatter if she didn't get her way. Right. Independent. I get it.
The next 3 days were a masterclass in unintentional cruelty. Our small house became a staging ground for a vacation I was only allowed to witness from the sidelines. The living room was carpeted in a sea of colorful fabric. Chloe had gone on a shopping spree with Mom's credit card, claiming she had absolutely nothing to wear for a tropical climate. Every time I came home from a shift at the diner, smelling like fried onions and floor cleaner, I'd find her posing in front of the full-length mirror. "Ruby, be a sec and zip this up?" Chloe asked, not looking away from her own reflection. She was wearing a flowing lemon-yellow sundress that probably cost more than I made in a week. I reached out, my fingers trembling slightly as I pulled the zipper. The fabric felt like water, expensive, silk blend water. "It's nice," I said, my voice flat. "It's a vibe, right?" Chloe chirped, twirling so the skirt flared out. "Mom said I deserved a whole new wardrobe since I've been so down lately. Oh, by the way, can you wash my white denim shorts? I need them for the flight tomorrow, and they have a tiny smudge." "I have a double shift today, Chloe. Wash them yourself." She puffed out her lower lip, turning toward the kitchen. "Mom, Ruby's being mean again." Mom appeared in the doorway, a stack of printed boarding passes in her hand. She didn't look at me, only at Chloe. "Ruby, honey, just toss them in with your uniforms. It'll take 2 seconds. We're so stressed trying to get everything ready." We. The word felt like a physical weight. The morning of their departure was a blur of slamming suitcases and frantic searches for passports. I stood in the kitchen, nursing a mug of lukewarm coffee, watching them. Mom looked younger than she had in years, her hair pulled back in a chic ponytail, wearing a new travel jumpsuit. "Okay, the list is on the fridge." Mom paused to peck my cheek. She smelled like coconut-scented sunblock. The scent made my stomach flip. "The Miller's dogs need to be walked at 7 a.m., noon, and 6 p.m. Don't forget to water the ferns, and please try to keep the kitchen clean. We don't want to come home to a mess." "I've got it, Mom," I said, leaning away from the scent. The shuttle honked in the driveway. Chloe grabbed her rose gold suitcase, her phone already out. "Bye, Ruby. Try not to be too bored." I stood on the porch until the sound of the engine faded into the suburban silence. The house behind me felt cavernous and cold. For the first time in my life, I was truly alone in my own home. I looked at the to-do list pinned to the fridge with a magnet shaped like a tropical pineapple. I was the strong one. I was the independent one. But as I looked at that list, all I felt was invisible. The silence of the house was louder than I expected. For the first 2 days, I'd tried to enjoy it. No one was yelling for a clean shirt, no one was hogging the bathroom, and the TV stayed on the channels I liked. But by the 3rd day, the emptiness started to feel heavy, like a thick coat I couldn't take off. I was finishing my shift at the Miller's house, playing fetch with their 2 Labradors, when I realized I'd left my house keys on the kitchen counter. I walked back home, my sneakers crunching on the dry grass of our lawn, another thing Mom expected me to water while she was sipping Mai Tais. When I stepped into the kitchen, I heard it, a rhythmic drip, drip, drip. I opened the cabinet under the sink and sighed. A pool of soapy water was stagnant at the bottom, soaking into the wood. The pipe was leaking again. "Great," I muttered, grabbing a bucket to catch the water. Just one more thing for the independent one to fix. I knew Mom kept a folder of house repairs in her home office. She was meticulous about keeping receipts and business cards for contractors. I usually stayed out of that room. It was Mom's sanctuary, which basically meant it was the only room in the house Chloe wasn't allowed to mess up. The office was cool and smelled of old paper and peppermint. I sat at the mahogany desk and pulled open the bottom drawer. I found the repairs folder easily enough, but as I pulled it out, it snagged on something else. A bright yellow folder tucked right at the back. It had the word "trip" written across the tab in Mom's neat, loopy handwriting. My heart did a strange little stutter step. I knew I should just find the plumber's number and leave, but the couldn't afford it lie was still a jagged glass shard in my throat. I wanted to see exactly how much the Maui trip cost. I wanted to see the numbers that supposedly proved I wasn't worth a ticket. I opened the folder. The first thing I saw was a flight confirmation. I scanned the names, Diane Grayson, Chloe Grayson. Then my breath hitched. There was a third name, partially blacked out with a marker, but still legible under the light. Ruby Grayson. I flipped to the next page. It was an invoice from the airline. It wasn't for 2 tickets. It was a receipt for 3 round-trip Economy Plus seats booked 4 months ago. My fingers started to go cold. They had the money. They had bought my seat. I kept digging. I found a second invoice dated just last week, 2 days before they left. It was a change order. My ticket had been canceled. The refund hadn't gone back into the bank account, though. It had been applied as a credit to upgrade the other 2 seats to first class. Then I found the printout of an email. It was an exchange between Mom and her best friend, Sarah. I ended up canceling Ruby's seat today. It sounds awful, I know, but you know how she is. She's so serious all the time, always worrying about the budget or her grades. She would have ruined the vibe of the trip. Chloe needs this to be fun and light. I told Ruby we just couldn't afford it. She's so independent she didn't even argue. I used the extra cash to book a private dolphin swim for Chloe and a deluxe spa day for us. Best decision ever. I sat there in the silence of the office, the paper crinkling in my grip. I didn't cry. I felt too cold for tears. The word independent wasn't a compliment. It was a weapon. It was the rug they used to sweep me under so they didn't have to look at me while they enjoyed the life I helped pay for. The drip in the kitchen continued, but I didn't move. I looked at the email again. Ruined the vibe. I wasn't a daughter to them. I was a distraction. A slow, icy resolve started to settle in my chest. If Mom wanted a trip with no distractions, I was going to make sure she got exactly what she paid for.
The yellow folder felt like it was vibrating in my hands, a radioactive secret that changed the color of every memory I had of my mother. I didn't put it back. I took it to the kitchen and spread the papers across the table, the same table where Mom had looked me in the eye and lied about her bank account. I walked over to the leaking sink. The drip, drip, drip was steady, like a clock counting down. I looked at the bucket, half full of gray, soapy water. Then I did something the responsible Ruby would never do. I picked up the bucket and dumped the water back down the drain. I left the cabinet doors wide open, the leak hitting the wood with a wet, hollow thud. "Let it rot," I whispered. The words felt jagged in my throat. I went back to the office and started digging deeper. If Mom was lying about the trip, what else was a lie? I found the household ledger, a messy spiral notebook where she tracked contributions. I saw my name. Every 2 weeks, like clockwork. Ruby, $250. I saw where that money went. It didn't go to property taxes or car repairs. There were entries right next to my name for Chloe's spray tans, Chloe's eyebrow laminations, and a social media branding course Chloe had taken over the summer. My skin felt tight, like I'd been standing too close to a fire. I had been scrubbing grease off tables at Pete's Diner so my sister could look aesthetic for her 500 followers. I was the engine that kept their world running, and my reward was being told I'd ruin the vibe. I pulled out my phone. My thumb hovered over my dad's contact. My parents had been divorced for 5 years. Dad lived 3 states away in Chicago. He wasn't a hero. He was a workaholic who sent checks and called on birthdays, but he was honest. He was the one who had set up my college fund. I hit the call button. It rang 3 times before he picked up. "Ruby, everything okay? It's a bit late for a school night, isn't it?" "Dad," I said, my voice cracking for the first time, "I need you to look at some documents. Mom told me she couldn't afford to take me on the family trip." "I know, honey, she told me. She said things were tight and you were happy to stay behind and work. I thought it was a bit much, but she said you insisted." "I didn't insist, Dad. She canceled my ticket. I'm looking at the cancellation receipt right now. She used my seat money to upgrade them to first class." there was a long, heavy silence on the other end of the line. I could hear the muffled sound of traffic in Chicago. She did what? Dad's voice had lost its casual warmth. It was low and dangerous now. Ruby, I sent her an extra $3,000 specifically for your travel expenses for that trip. I told her I wanted you to have a good summer before your senior year. A cold realization washed over me. It wasn't just that they had the money, it was my money, money meant for me. Send me photos of everything, Ruby, Dad said, his voice clipped. Don't say a word to her yet. Let them enjoy their vibe. I'll be on a flight tomorrow morning. I hung up and started snapping photos. The flash of my camera phone illuminated the dark kitchen, capturing every lie in high definition. I wasn't just house-sitting anymore. I was building a case.
The next 12 hours were the strangest of my life. I went through the motions, walking the miller's dogs, making myself a piece of dry toast, even staring at my biology textbook, but I felt like a ghost haunting my own home. I kept the kitchen light off, sitting in the dark, watching the shadows of the trees stretch across the floor. At 11 a.m., a black rental car pulled into the driveway. I was at the door before my dad could even cut the engine. He looked exactly like he did in our monthly video calls. Expensive suit, tired eyes, and a forehead that seemed to have gained a few more worry lines. When he saw we standing there, he didn't say a word. He just opened his arms. I didn't think I was going to cry. I had spent years being the strong one, but the moment his wool coat pressed against my cheek, I sobbed. I sobbed for the missed flights, the grease-stained shifts at the diner, and the 3 years I'd spent believing I was just a financial burden. "I've got you, Ruby," he whispered, patting my hair. "Let's see the evidence." We spent the afternoon in the office. Dad didn't just look at the trip folder. He brought a laptop and logged into the joint accounts he still shared with my mother for emergency purposes. His face turned a shade of gray-white as he scrolled. "She's been dipping into your college savings, Ruby," he said, his voice dangerously calm. "Not a lot at a time, 50 here, 100 there, all labeled as academic fees or tutor costs. But look at the dates." I leaned in. The dates matched the weekend Chloe went to Coachella. They matched the day Chloe got her premium hair extensions. "She used your future to fund your sister's aesthetic," Dad said. He took a deep breath, rubbing the bridge of his nose. "I've been sending child support and extra education checks for years, thinking she was managing things. I should have checked. I'm so sorry, honey." "What do we do?" I asked. My heart was pounding so hard I could feel it in my fingertips. "They're coming back in 4 days." Dad looked toward the window, his jaw set. "We let them have their fun. If we confront her now, she'll just stay in Hawaii and try to move money around or come up with a story. No, we want her right here, where she can't run from the truth." "Should I text her back?" I asked. Mom had sent a photo of a sunset dinner an hour ago. "Thinking of you, Ruby. Wish you could taste this lobster. XOXO." "Tell her you're doing great," Dad said, a grim smile touching his lips. "Tell her the house is exactly how she left it. We're going to give her the perfect vibe to come home to." For the next 4 days, I played the part. I sent happy texts. I told Chloe her tan looked fire in her latest post. Meanwhile, Dad stayed at a hotel nearby, working with a lawyer to pull every bank statement from the last 3 years. The house felt like a trap.
The leak under the sink had started to warp the wood of the cabinet, the smell of dampness rising like a secret. I didn't fix it. Every time I smelled that rot, it reminded me of the truth hidden in the yellow folder. They were coming home on Sunday, and for the first time in my life, I wasn't the one who was going to be left behind.
Sunday afternoon arrived with a sweltering heat that made the air in the house feel thick and stagnant. I sat on the living room sofa, staring at the front door. The house was clean, spotless actually, except for the kitchen cabinet where the leak had finally moved from a drip to a steady trickle. The smell of damp wood was unmistakable now, a sour, earthy scent that didn't belong in a perfect home. At 4 p.m., the familiar rumble of the airport shuttle echoed in the driveway. I didn't get up to meet them. I stayed seated, my hands folded in my lap, watching as the door swung open. Mom and Chloe burst in like a whirlwind of tropical color and loud voices. They were both deeply tanned, their hair lightened by the Pacific sun, and they were laden with so many shopping bags from high-end boutiques that they could barely fit through the frame. "We're home!" Mom sang, dropping a heavy leather tote on the entryway table. "Oh, Ruby, it was absolutely divine. You wouldn't believe the color of the water." Chloe kicked off her new designer sandals, leaving them in the middle of the floor. "I'm literally exhausted. First class is great and all, but 12 hours of travel is just a lot for my skin. Ruby, can you bring my bags up? I think I pulled a muscle during the hula lesson." I didn't move. I just looked at them. They looked like strangers, two people who had spent 10 days living a life I had funded with my shifts at the diner. Mom walked over to me, a wide, performative smile on her face. She reached into a small plastic bag and pulled out a flimsy, neon pink lei. "Here, honey, we saw this at the airport and thought of you. It's even your favorite color." The lei felt like a joke. A $5 piece of plastic offered in exchange for a first-class ticket to Maui. "Thanks," I said, my voice as cold as a winter morning. I didn't put it on. I just laid it on the coffee table. "Are you okay, sweetie?" Mom asked, her brow furrowing slightly. "Did something happen with the Miller's dogs?" "The dogs are fine, Mom," I said. "Actually, everything is fine. I even made a special dinner to celebrate your return. Why don't you both wash up? We can talk in the dining room." "Dinner? Oh, Ruby, how sweet!" Mom turned to Chloe. "See, I told you she wouldn't mind staying behind. She's so thoughtful." Chloe ground, grabbing her phone. "As long as it's not something greasy. I've been eating nothing but organic acai bowls for a week, and I don't want to ruin my glow." They headed upstairs, their laughter trailing behind them like a bad smell. I stood up and walked into the dining room. I didn't set the table with plates or silverware. Instead, I took the yellow folder from the office and placed it right in the center of the mahogany table. Underneath it, I placed the stack of bank statements my dad had printed out, the ones showing the academic fees that had actually paid for Chloe's hair. I sat down at the head of the table, Mom's usual spot, and waited. The vibe in the house was about to change. The sound of their footsteps on the stairs was light and rhythmic, a sharp contrast to the leaden weight sitting in my stomach. They came into the dining room together, Chloe still swiping through her phone and Mom drying her hands on a kitchen towel. "Where's the food, Ruby? I'm actually starving," Chloe said, pulling out her chair without looking up. She stopped halfway down when she saw the table. "Wait, what is this? Is this a joke?" The table was bare of plates, napkins, or glasses, just the yellow folder, glowing like a hazard sign under the dining room chandelier. Mom's smile faltered, her gaze flickering from me to the folder. "Ruby, where's dinner? And why are my office files on the table?" "I thought we should look at the receipts first," I said. My voice was steady, unnervingly so. "Since you were so worried about the budget, I thought I'd help you audit the trip." Mom laughed,
a high, nervous sound that grated on my ears. "Honey, you're being dramatic. I told you things were tight. Now put that away and—" "I found the cancellation notice, Mom." I opened the folder and slid the first page toward her. "The one dated 48 hours before you left. The one where you traded my seat for a first-class upgrade for you and Chloe." The color drained from Mom's face so fast it was like someone had pulled a plug. Chloe finally put her phone down, her eyes darting between us. "Mom, what is she talking about?" "And then there's this," I continued, sliding the printed email across the wood. I watched Mom's eyes scan the text, the part where she called me a distraction who would ruin the vibe. "Ruby, you don't understand," Mom stammered, her hands beginning to shake. "Chloe was in such a dark place. I just wanted one trip where she didn't have to deal with your constant judgment. You're always so focused on money and work. You make everything feel like a chore." "I'm focused on money because I'm the one making it." I stood up, the chair screeching against the tile. "I gave you my paychecks because you said we were struggling. But I saw the ledger, Mom. I saw where my diner money went. It didn't go to the mortgage. It went to Chloe's hair, her clothes, her vibe." "So what?" snapped Chloe, her voice rising in a defensive whine. "You're the smart one, Rui. You're going to get scholarships and be fine. I need a little help to get started. It's not a big deal." "It became a big deal when you started stealing from my college fund," I said, looking directly at Chloe, then back at Mom. "Dad's money, the money he sent specifically for me." Mom's breath hitched. How do you know about that?" "Because I called him." At that exact moment, the front door opened. The heavy, deliberate thud of the door closing echoed through the house. Dad walked into the dining room, his face a mask of cold, professional fury. He didn't look at the souvenirs or the tan lines. He looked at the bank statements on the table. "Diane," he said, his voice low and vibrating with a rage I'd never heard from him before. "I think you and I need to have a very long conversation about where my daughter's money went." Mom sank into a chair, her vacation glow completely extinguished. She looked small, caught, and for the first time in my life, she looked like she couldn't lie her way out of the room. The silence that followed my dad's entrance was heavy enough to crush the breath out of the room. Mom looked at him, then at the bank statements, her mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water. "Bill, I can explain," she started, her voice thin and reedy. I was going to put it back. It was a loan. Things have been so stressful here with just me and the girls." "A loan you took from your daughter's future to pay for first-class upgrades," Dad interrupted. He walked over to the table and picked up the yellow folder. "I didn't send you that money for stress relief, Diane. I sent it to ensure Ruby had the same opportunities as anyone else. You lied to me. And worse, you lied to her." Chloe finally seemed to realize the gravity of the situation. She looked at the expensive shopping bags she'd dropped in the hallway, bags filled with clothes she'd bought with money that wasn't hers. "Wait, so I have to give this stuff back?" I looked at my sister. There was no remorse in her eyes, only the fear of losing her new toys. That was the moment the last string of my loyalty finally snapped. "I'm leaving, Mom," I said. My voice was surprisingly calm, the kind of calm that comes after a fever finally breaks. "What? Ruby, don't be ridiculous," Mom said, standing up. "It's your senior year. You can't just—" "I'm taking her to Chicago," Dad said. He looked at Mom with a coldness that made her flinch. "She'll finish her senior year there. As for the money you took from her college fund, you have 30 days to reimburse the full amount, or I'm filing a formal suit for embezzlement of trust funds. I've already spoken to my attorney." Mom collapsed back into her chair, burying her face in her hands. She started to sob. Not the quiet, dignified cry of someone who was sorry, but the loud, performative wail of someone who had finally been caught. I didn't stay to watch the rest. I walked upstairs and grabbed my duffel bags. I didn't pack everything, only the things I'd bought with my own hard-earned money from the diner. I left the beach-ready clothes and the memories of being the independent one behind. As I walked back down the stairs, I stopped in the kitchen. The leak under the sink was still there, the water pooling on the warped wood. I reached into my pocket, pulled out the neon pink plastic lei Mom had given me, and dropped it right into the middle of the puddle. "Enjoy the vibe," I whispered. 6 months later. The air in Chicago was crisp and smelled of rain and lake water, a far cry from the grease trap scent of Pete's Diner. I sat on a bench at the airport, my graduation cap and gown tucked safely in my suitcase. My phone buzzed. It was a notification from Chloe's Instagram. I hadn't blocked her, mostly because watching her reality crumble from a distance was its own kind of therapy. She was posting a photo of herself at a local community college, looking miserable with the caption, "Working so hard. Life is so unfair sometimes. #struggle." I tucked my phone away and looked up at the departures board. Dad had kept his word. After a long legal battle, Mom was forced to sell her SUV and take out a second mortgage to pay back every cent she'd borrowed from my college fund. She tried to call me a dozen times, but I never picked up. I didn't hate her anymore. I just didn't have room for her in my vibe. A voice came over the intercom. "Boarding for flight 402 to London is now beginning at gate B12. I stood up, gripping my passport. For the first time in my life, I wasn't the one house-sitting. I wasn't the one left behind to water the ferns and fix the leaks. I walked toward the gate, a smile tugging at my lips. I was independent, all right, but this time it was on my own terms.